It's really tough as a Canadian to have to swallow the fact that we as Canada or Canadian citizens have to live with the fact knowing that we have a history of discrimination and violence and genocide towards Indigenous people in this country. And it really breaks my heart just thinking of the thousands of lives that were lost and affected by the Indian residential schools that were enforced upon the Indigenous community for hundreds of years. What's up, guys? Magic Knives here, and in this gameplay commentary, watching some Black Ops 4 knife-only gameplay, bringing some Call of Duty back to you guys, some classic knife-only gameplay, and I mean, I really had to do this commentary just to briefly talk about this matter because it just brings such a heavy heart for me, as well as it does for the millions of Canadians that are hearing about the news of the discovery of the unmarked graves of literally thousands of Indigenous children that were murdered by the perpetrators within the Indian residential schools that were created and enforced by the Canadian government at the time to try and get rid of the Indigenous community, their culture, and ultimately their way of life. You know, the fact is they made these schools to try and cleanse the Indian the Indigenous peoples of religion, their belief. They forced them to speak English or French. They were not allowed to speak their own language. They had to dress their own they had to dress in the sort of like English manner or English way, and you know, it's I remember actually watching a documentary about the Indian residential schools in college, and it was like a social diversity class, and you know, the documentary was really like it was really sad to watch because the amount of abuse and torture was just insane. Like, I cannot fathom how Indigenous people today that are survivors of these schools, this residential school system, the effects are still clear. Hundreds, if not thousands, of Indigenous people are still suffering to this day with, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, you know, suffer alcohol abuse from it, and just a bunch of things. Like, nothing will nothing will be able to fix this. Like, this will be a dark side of our history as Canadians for forever, for a long time. Like, we will have to live on knowing this sad truth of the matter, that, you know, we had these residential schools in place to rid of a society and community of people that were here long before us. Like, we came into their land, to their country, like, you know, when they were already living here for thousands of years before us. And then eventually, we took over, and the people back then tried to suppress these people, go to war, and so forth. And eventually, they try to rid them of their culture, their religion, their way of life, everything. And the crazy thing is that it took until 1996 for the last residential school to close. Like, that's like that is like 25 years ago, and I'm currently 25 now as it is. So, like, even when I was even before I was born, or just as I was born, there was still a residential school still open. Like, that is insane how, like, it wasn't even that long ago that the residential schools were still existing. And the fact is, like, so many of these indigenous kids were separated from their families. They were forced into these systems, and most of them, some of them never even got to see their parents or family again afterwards, even after they graduated. And if they were really unfortunate, and they were one of the victims that got murdered and buried, the parents and family will never got an explanation of what happened to them. And that's the worst part. The families of those kids that got murdered, they'll never know what happened to them. And we're only now discovering these thousands of unmarked graves of indigenous children that have been killed, and who knows how many there are still out there that are waiting to be discovered now. And I really hope that we as Canadian society can learn from this to listen to the indigenous community, and open up, and hopefully we can try to show them our support moving forward from this horrible past. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys in my future videos. Peace out, guys.